G'day legends, welcome to what I watched January edition. Coming in hot to start off the month, I watched Nosferatu. By now, most of you guys probably know what this movie is about, and or you've probably seen a bunch of memes about it.
It is a black woman to journey in poor hell.
Set in the late 1830s, it's pretty much about this old gnarly vampire who's trying to sleep with a woman played by Lily Rose Depp, who summoned him back when she was a child. Her husband, played by Nicholas Hoult, tries to stop the whole thing from happening with the help of Willem Dafoe. If that doesn't sell you on this film, I don't know what will, because I tell you guys, director Robert Eggers has done it again. I love all of his movies, and for me, Nosferatu is up with his very best. The main cast are all absolutely brilliant, and a very special shout out to Lily Rose Depp for that scene that everyone's talking about. But man, the rest of the cast are great too. It feels like a direct time portal back to the 1830s, which is exactly what Eggers is so good at, but also at the same time, I do think there's a deeper meaning here. It has a lot to say about the darker side of humanity, depression, loneliness, lust, and that's a side of human nature present in all of us. Goodness in the world will always prevail, and I do believe that, but not necessarily without significant sacrifice. If you want to think a little bit more deeper about the film, I think it explores those ideas and themes in a really creative and nuanced way. After that, I watched Paddington in Peru. This has to be one of the most overrated trilogies of recent times in my humble opinion. I hate to be a hater, and I know that's ironic, but man, I've heard so many people go on about how much they love these movies, good for them, but I just don't see it. I know I sound so salty right now, but these movies, they vastly over-romanticize London, and yes, Paddington is cute, but I wish his character was a bit more dynamic and less one note, because he's pretty much just wholesome the entire time, and it ends up feeling way too cheesy. The trend continues here, and personally, I think the other two films were significantly better than this one. Paddington returns to Peru in search of his grandma. We have some big celebrity cameos from Olivia Colman and Antonio Banderas, but the scripts they're given just don't come across as that funny to me. Apart from Hugh Bonneville, Paddington's family feels so irrelevant to the plot, to the point where they even recast his foster mother. So yeah, I really struggled as well with the pacing here, guys, and I'm sorry to say it, but I just wasn't able to feel much emotion with this one at all. I was kind of falling asleep. Then, over in TV land, I finished Nobody Wants This. The show follows an agnostic sex podcaster and a newly single rabbi as they fall in love, discovering if their relationship will survive their wildly different lives and meddling families. My girlfriend absolutely loved this show and really wanted me to rewatch it through with her, and in the end, I was pretty happy that I did. This is completely out of my normal taste in television, so it was a genuinely positive experience to try something a little bit different, and overall I did end up enjoying it. Adam Brody and Kristen Bell are both really likable and have great chemistry on screen. The episodes are short, witty, and entertaining. And believe it or not, the show actually covered some surprisingly complicated issues when it comes to religion, in this case Judaism, and how that can influence a romantic relationship. As a Christian myself, I still thought that the exploration of those ideas on screen was done in a really tasteful and intelligent way, and something that I'd give serious kudos to the show for. I think it's not something you necessarily see represented on screen all that often, at least not in my experience with watching things. So it'll be interesting to see whether they can keep up the quality in season 2, because I'm definitely looking forward to watching it. Then I watched Skyfall. My housemate Jamie is a huge James Bond fan. I'd found this Blu-ray steelbook in an op shop for only $5, so we'd had this movie night booked in for a long time. So many people I knew had talked up this movie for how good it supposedly is, how it's meant to be one of the best James Bond films ever, and unfortunately I do have to say I was a a bit disappointed. Casino Royale still remains my favorite James Bond film so far, because unlike all the other ones I've seen, I think it actually taps into some human emotion with both Bond and Vesper's love story. Here in Skyfall, the characters just feel so cold. I felt no emotion, especially with Judi Dench, whose character just really seems to refuse to value human life, and that can be hard to watch. The spectacle is great, yes. The villain is interesting and carried by a great performance from Javier Bardem. You wouldn't expect anything less from him. But this movie, it just doesn't tap into the emotional areas that it should have for it to be a truly compelling and memorable film. It was still entertaining though, maybe a little bit too long, but still entertaining. After that, I watched Wolfman. Coming from Australian director Lee Wannell, known for his innovative and engaging science fiction filmmaking, namely through his previous two features, Upgrade from 2018 and The Invisible Man from 2020, I was keen for this movie. As you can see from the trailers, it follows a family as they're attacked by a werewolf, and the dad, played by Christopher Abbott, is infected and begins to slowly transform into one. Sadly, the movie just fell into some of the negative horror cliches and tropes that you hear people talk down on the horror genre for. The writing was poor, and it seemed like it was trying to explore themes surrounding generational trauma and domestic violence, but it just wasn't able to stick the landing. If you're interested to know why, make sure you check out my Wolfman review in the card above. Then I watched the short, Nothing Except Everything. A lot of people hate on Wesley Wang, the guy who made this, because he's just been picked up by a major studio, Sony, to turn this short into a feature-length film. And yes, it seems like he comes from a bit of privilege with being able to gather the resources to make this film, and yes, it does fall into all the classic coming-of-age student film tropes and cliches, and condenses them all into one movie. A graduating high schooler navigates a world of seemingly inevitable chaos by finding order in the number 7. So yeah, people are absolutely hating on this short, and also the director as well, and a lot of it to me just seems pretty unfounded. Yes, there are significantly more creative ideas and short films on YouTube that I wish were picked up by major studios and given feature film treatment. But sadly, guys, we just don't live in that world, and I really do hope that changes. I think we have the power as an audience and as an online community to try and make changes like that. But at the same time, I don't think this guy finding success online, yes, even if he does do a bunch of boring cliches that everyone's tired of, I don't think that's a reason to tear down this filmmaker just because he's been given a big break. If you're enjoying this video, guys, and you want me to keep making these monthly recap videos, please consider leaving a like, because unfortunately, this kind of video, it doesn't really perform well in the algorithm, but I love making them, so doing a small thing like leaving a like, that can really help me out. So thank you guys, I appreciate it. Back to the video. After that, I watched 10 Cloverfield Lane. If you've ever thought about wanting to build an apocalypse bunker, this is the movie for you. After a catastrophic car crash, a young woman wakes up in a survivalist's underground bunker where he claims to have saved her from an apocalyptic attack that has left the outside world uninhabitable. I'd watched this movie years ago and I was really excited to revisit it, and for me, this movie just really doesn't disappoint. For some reason, I just love watching John Goodman in anything, and he is genuinely scary here. The whole psychological aspect of whether there really is an apocalypse going on outside or not, and that ending that goes ridiculously crazy. Some people will hate it, but I just absolutely love how completely bonkers it is. And on the same night, I also watched War of the Worlds. I was really surprised that I haven't seen many people talk about this. Tom Cruise in the leading role, trying to guide his family to safety as the world faces an alien invasion, directed by Steven Spielberg. Come on, guys, you know that is gonna be good. And in a world we live in now where so much on the screen is CGI and depressingly soon probably AI, it's just so refreshing to watch this and see some huge practical set pieces. it makes everything feel a lot more real. People might get angry at me for this comparison, but this felt like Children of Men, except with aliens, and I mean that as a very high compliment. Yes, there's some cheesy moments and maybe some cheesy dialogue. The ending is definitely a bit too sudden, but those are some minor complaints for me because this is the perfect blend of cosmic horror, thriller, and science fiction, and at its core, it has a character-driven story of a father learning how to be closer to his children and protect them. And I commend the movie for that. Then I watched Section 31. Man, this was a really tough watch. It's the 14th film in the Star Trek franchise, a franchise that I love. But yeah, it's hard to say that in the same sentence with this movie because, Emperor Philippa Georgiou joins a secret division of Starfleet tasked with protecting the United Federation of Planets, and she has to face the sins of her past, apparently. For those that don't know, this was originally a TV series that got converted to a streaming release movie, and it features Michelle Yeoh reprising her role from a recent Star Trek series, Star Trek Discovery, which I also really dislike, I'm sorry to say. Some of the actual filmmaking choices here are ridiculous. Numerous digital zooms added in post-production, weird editing cuts and camera coverage, completely cringeworthy dialogue.
You're a bad bitch.
It just doesn't deserve to be put under the name of Star Trek, and it is a stain on that whole movie franchise.
I meant to say that it should be hauled away as garbage.
I mean, I wasn't bored while watching this, and I was sort of entertained, but I wasn't happy. You can check out my full review in the card above if you want to hear more about that, and yeah, that review might surprise you a little bit. And to finish the month, I finally got to watch We Live in Time. I genuinely got so tired of seeing trailers for this in cinemas. It felt like I'd seen it advertised 50 million times, and finally we got a January wide release for this in Australia. And overall, this movie, it didn't disappoint. So it follows an up-and-coming chef and a recent divorcee as they find their lives forever changed when a chance encounter brings them together in a decade-spanning, deeply moving romance. The on-screen chemistry, guys, I gotta say, between Andrew Garfield playing Tobias and Florence Pugh playing Almut is special, and it does really serve as the anchor for the film. There are times where I do think Tobias as a character comes across as a little bit too passive, and it was hard for me to buy why Almut originally falls in love with him.
I have nothing.
The challenges of choosing to have kids, and having that discussion really early on in their relationship, that was refreshing to see explored on screen, as well as, balancing both partners' goals and ambitions and dealing with a devastating cancer diagnosis. But then on top of that, there's a lot of comedy here too, which for the most part, I felt was genuinely funny, and that ending, it will have you feeling emotional. I must say though, it didn't really stay with me now it's been a bit of a while after I've watched it, and I can't say that I'm rushing out the door to go and see it again, but I would still recommend it, especially for a couple to watch together. And that's what I watched in January. It was a big month of movies to start the year. Make sure you let me know in the comments what you watched this month. I want to know. And if you want to find out about some great movies still to come in 2025, make sure you click on my most anticipated movies of 2025 card in the next screen. But most importantly, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.